Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding to receive the worship of the Mayor of Burnley, Councillor Arif Khan. Thank you.
Please be seated. Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome members to the Council meeting at Burnley Mechanics and thank our hosts for accommodating us again. Congratulations, Councillor Becky Hughes, on your newborn, and we welcome him. Can I ask members and members of the public not to talk amongst themselves during the meeting, as this can be very distracting for those who are listening to the debate? Can I also ask everyone to ensure any mobile devices are switched to silent and do not cause a distraction during the meeting? I would remind everyone that the use of mobile devices for the taking or making of phone calls is not permitted in the meeting. I would also remind members that where they are able to, they are required to stand when addressing the council meeting. When members are invited to speak, please wait for the microphone to be brought to you before you start to speak. We are aware that some members have have hearing difficulties. Additionally, while some members may not need the amplification to be heard in the room, the viewers at home will not be able to hear. We would ask you to speak clearly and not hold papers or anything else between themselves and the microphone when speaking. We are not expecting a please follow officers out of the building to the assembly point. The meeting is being streamed, and I would like to take the opportunity to welcome those watching on the Council's YouTube channel. Finally, members, let us all remember to treat members of the public, elected members and officers with respect throughout the meeting, as set out in the Code of Conduct for members. Item 1 on the agenda, minutes of the last meeting of the Council, held on 27 September 2023. I will move those minutes. Mr. Deputy Mayor, will you second those minutes?
I second those minutes, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Item 2 on the agenda, declaration of interest. Are there any declaration of interest? No. Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda, Mayor's communications. There are none this evening. Item 4 on the agenda, public question times. We have received 3 requests to speak. Mr. Dominic Green has requested to speak on the County Combined Authority. Mr. Green, you have 5 minutes to speak on the matter.
Good evening, everybody. So basically, I've got one big question. It's how are we going to fund this? Because it says in the agenda that the government may be giving funds to us to fund this, it says also that we can't increase council tax to fund this devolution agenda. Now, I've got one big problem with that. So the government doesn't have any money whatsoever. They only get money by either taxing us or by printing money into existence, which creates inflation, which I'm sure everybody here tonight is feeling the effects of inflation. So my question is just how are we going to fund all this this agenda for devolution, and also just other in general. I know our money is asking a question about the devolution, but how are we going to fund everything else without raising taxes and without printing money from the government? That's basically my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Councillor Anwar, can you respond to Mr. Green?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Green, for your question. In response to your request to speak, I can provide the following information in relation to the funding of the proposal of the Combined County Authority. Funding for the proposed Combined County Authority would be devolved from central government. As the report to this week's council meeting outlines, £1 million of capacity funding would be provided by central government, so that would mean in 24-25, 250,000, 25-26, £500,000, and in 26-27, another 250k. Beyond that, it's expected that the running costs would be met either by continued central government support or with funding from the three constituent councils, which are Blackburn with Darwen, Blackpool Council and Lancashire County Council. Whilst Metro mayors have the power to introduce a precept on council tax, combined county authorities do not, and therefore they would not be able to raise the money through increasing council tax. The report to this week's council meeting makes it clear that there are no new budget implications arising from this for Burnley Borough Council. The government would also provide the CCA with up to £20 million capital funding up to the end of 24-25 financial year to support innovation-led growth and net zero ambitions across the county, subject to the agreement of relevant business cases. Lancashire County Council is now consulting on the draft devolution proposal, and anyone who lives or works in the county, as well as businesses and any other interested parties, can give their feedback until the 26th of January 24, and you can find the details for that on the Lancashire Devolution website. So I hope that answers your questions and explains how it's intended to fund the CCA. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Anwar. I'm not asking any members for any questions, as we're going to debate on this item later on. All right, next is Mrs. B. Foster and Imam Abdul Rahman have requested to speak on the situation in Palestine-Israel here. May I ask Mrs. B. Foster to come at the rostrum? Yeah. Mrs. B. Foster, you have got 5 minutes to speak.
Okay, can everybody hear me? As most of you know, I'm very privileged to go out to Palestine and live in the West Bank for weeks at a time, volunteering with many groups from all faith groups working for peace. Unfortunately, earlier this year, 7 weeks into my 9-week stay, war was declared. My involvement with Palestine has come about through pilgrimages that Building Bridges in Burnley, under the guidance of Father Michael, organised. He organised these pilgrimages as he knew how important the Holy Land was to people of all three faiths, Jews, Muslims and Christians, and that what happened in their holy places, the Western Wall, the Alaska Mosque and the Holy Sepulchre, affected Jews, Muslims, Christians around the world, including people of faith here in Burnley. As a result of these pilgrimages, women who went on them with me saw for themselves the effects of the illegal occupation and the building of illegal settlements deemed so by international law under the United Nations in the land of Palestine. The Women for Peace group was formed as a result of this. And we represent, if you'd like to stand, ladies, we represent Jews, Muslims and Christians and people of no faith. And they are here tonight. Thank you. We have been active for at least... We've been active for over 3 years. The interfaith groups that we volunteer with out in the Holy Land, who are working for peace, make it clear to us that they do not hate Jews. It is the illegal occupation that they oppose and want to see gone. And to challenge the Israeli government on the issue of the illegal occupation is not anti-Semitic. It is to stand up for justice and human rights for all who live in the Holy Land. We always ask the groups that we work with what we can do for them when we come back home. They say 3 things. 1, to pray for them. 2, to tell their stories of what it's like to live under occupation and an apartheid regime, and to put pressure on the government to keep their promise that they made in the Balfour Declaration, which says, His Majesty's government view with favour the establishment in Palestine of a national homeland for Jewish people, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of the existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine. This was agreed by our government in 1917. For me, who has seen the situation firsthand, it is clear that we, as a nation, have let the Palestinian people down. Sadly, as a consequence of the war, we are seeing the effects on relationships within our own town, our own country, and around the world. Building Bridges have worked hard over the years to bring about community cohesion that is strong within our town. And we do not wish that to be shattered by the war in Gaza Strip and the situation in the West Bank. That is why we are asking as a group, we are asking the Council to show their support for the many residents from all faiths and all walks of life in Burnley who are affected by this terrible war, to ask the government to call for an immediate ceasefire and to start the diplomatic path which will bring justice and equal human rights for all in Palestine and Israel, so that peace can come for all who live in the Holy Land. Thank you for listening. And we as a group are happy to come anywhere and everywhere to talk to individuals or groups about our experiences. And we also are having a Women for Peace, anybody can come though, men or women, working for a just peace in Palestine and Israel, a prayer and peace vigil for the Holy Land on Saturday the 16th of December at 3:30 in the Peace Gardens. We'd love to see you there.
Thank you, Mrs. Foster. Thank you. May I ask Imam Abdul Rahman? So is he not coming? Okay, thank you so much. It would be normal at this point for the floor to be open to all members, but as there is a motion on the same subject on the agenda, we will reserve the debate for that point on the agenda. So we are moving towards item 5, motion to council. Item 5A.
Thank you. In line with the Council Procedure Rule 13, motions without notice, I would move that under Part C, to change the order of business in the agenda, that we consider item 5B of this section after agenda item 6A, which is on a similar subject and is more appropriate to be heard there.
Yeah, is there any seconder?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show. Yeah. All those against? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carried. Right, so we are back to agenda item 5, item 5A, motion on ceasefire for the humanitarian crisis in Palestine, the West Bank and Israel, and immediate release of hostages. Councillor Lubna Khan, will you move your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move my motion and reserve the right to speak. I would like to just outline what my motion is about. Residents in Burnley, including those in the Interfaith community, are very concerned about what is happening in Palestine and Israel. This issue has been debated regularly by the Building Bridges Forum in Burnley. As a town, we need to continue to work hard on the relationships in the town between all the sections of the community. The situation in Palestine and Israel is of direct relevance to building community cohesion in Burnley. We have been approached by residents with strong links to Palestine and Israel who are deeply concerned. It should be noted that there are a number of residents with strong connections and family in the region who are deeply impacted by the conflict. For many years, our borough has come together to resolve conflicts across social and cultural divides, a fact celebrated through the continuous work of community-based organisations like Building Bridges. Hundreds of our residents are engaged in activities organised by and for residents of diverse backgrounds and beliefs. We are appalled by the violent conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza that has had such severe consequences for civilians in both Israel and Palestine. The unprecedented level of casualties has resulted in countless lives being lost. Each passing day sees a rising toll on lives and a worsening humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. Civilian deaths in Gaza are increasing rapidly due to the relentless Israeli bombardment, retaliating to the horrific attacks by Hamas on October the 7th in Israel, which led to 1,400 casualties and the abduction of civilians. Many residents from across Burnley have asked us, their representatives, to speak out and to call on the UK government to push for an immediate ceasefire to stop the mass killing of civilians in the Israel-Gaza conflict and for the immediate release of all hostages held since October the 7th, 2023. According to recent figures, at least 15,271 Palestinians in Gaza have been killed, including 3,561 women and 6,403 children, often through indiscriminate and unlawful attacks. Over half of Gaza's casualties are children, and thousands are missing, with many trapped beneath rubble. Millions face additional displacement, dispossession and suffering. Over 200 Israeli hostages held by Hamas and other resistant groups in Gaza are in peril. An ongoing indiscriminate rocket fire into Israel poses risks to civilians. Israel's tightened siege on Gaza has blocked essential goods like water, food, fuel, leaving over 2 million people in the Gaza Strip struggling to survive. The humanitarian catastrophe resulting from Israel's 16-year-long illegal blockade will escalate further if the fighting doesn't cease immediately. Serious violations of international humanitarian law, including war crimes, persist amongst all parties involved in the conflict. Therefore, this council believes that an immediate ceasefire and the immediate release of hostages is needed to halt the ongoing violence. We direct the council leader and the chief executive to write to the Prime Minister and to the leader of the opposition to urge the government to work with Israel and Hamas to bring about a negotiation in which we can ensure the immediate release of all hostages. Ask the government to call for an immediate ceasefire and an end to the Israeli siege of Gaza. Ask the government to guarantee the prompt opening of aid corridors into Gaza, enabling the delivery of crucial supplies such as water, fuel, food, and life-saving medical equipment to those impacted by the conflict. We urge the United Nations and International Criminal Court to appoint independent arbitrators to assess the validity of evidence of war crimes. We urge all parties to collaborate on achieving peace, enabling the establishment of a recognized and sovereign Palestine alongside a secure and sovereign Israel. Advocate for the appointment of a British special envoy to collaborate with the United Nations and other stakeholders, expediting the peace process in alignment with the Oslo Accords and preceding UN resolutions. We ask the government to consider the wider refugee implications of Palestinian displacement and that an international resettlement scheme is negotiated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Councillor Scott Cunliffe, will you second that motion?
I'm happy to second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any member? Councillor Birtwistle. Councillor Raja.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a father and grandfather, I am horrified to see children and babies in body bags. I find the situation in Gaza horrific. There is no excuse for what is going on. Layla Moran, the Liberal Democrat Foreign Affairs spokesman, is a British Palestinian Member of Parliament in the UK. And she has spoken clearly about the situation there. She has lost one member of her family who died because he couldn't get to a hospital, not because there was no transport to the hospital, because the hospital was no longer there. She has now got another member of her family who is on their last legs because he's having to drink contaminated water because the water supply has been cut off. We are human beings. We are all human beings. And to cut the water off to fellow human beings, to me, is a war crime beyond belief. Now, Layla put forward the Liberal Democrat view on this and the proposal there should be an immediate, sustainable ceasefire to this conflict, where humanitarian aid is brought in, undisturbed humanitarian aid is brought in by the UN, controlled by the UN, so they can refill all the warehouses in the area, so that the residents of Gaza can be fed and drink water. That is a human request, nothing else. We're not asking for anything more. This, unfortunately, wasn't supported in Parliament by two of the main parties, but thankfully a motion was put forward by, as it happens, the Scottish Nationalists that didn't, in my view, go far enough, but it was enough for the vote to take place. Unfortunately, it didn't pass. What is going on there is beyond belief. And it upsets me to stand here tonight and speak about this. I can't watch it on the television. How can it be right for white body bags to be laid out in the street with the names of people inside them? How can it be right that they're now being stored in areas in open air because there is nowhere, the freezers have all been shut down? How can it be right that one country, I accept what went on by Hamas was wrong, but this is completely over the top. How can a country who are also human beings, literally bomb the hell out of another country? This is completely over the top. The bombing, indiscriminate bombing by laser-guided bombs from F-35 fighters flying 20,000 feet in the air, indiscriminate bombing, killing thousands upon thousands of innocent human beings is wrong, and it should be stopped. And I am absolutely delighted to support the motion put forward by my colleague Councillor Khan, who put it forward very well. And I can assure you that I personally will be supporting this motion, and I'm pretty confident that the Liberal Democrats in this room will also be supporting it. What is going on, it should stop, must stop now, and the ceasefire called immediately so that the UN can move in and sort this out. How can it be right that the UN warehouses that store all the food for the residents to live off are being blasted by laser-guided bombs? This is inhumane. Mr. Mayor, this is not a war. This is attrition, and this has to stop now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Brushison. Councillor Raja.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I would like to thank Councillor Lubna Khan and Councillor Scott Cunliffe for tabling this crucial motion before the full council today. I know there will be a few in this room who will be thinking and saying, why has this motion been brought to the council today when we should only be discussing local issues? Well, let me tell you, this has everything to do with us locally. As councillors, we represent communities that are affected by these devastating events in both Gaza and Israel. And not only that, we should all be speaking up as human beings. And for the sake of humanity, every life matters. I strongly condemn all acts of terrorism and violence. However, innocent civilians should not be paying the price for someone else's wrongdoings. The events on October the 7th were totally unacceptable and devastating. But what has happened ever since to the innocent Palestinians in Gaza is beyond imaginable. Having to wake up each morning and seeing heartbreaking videos and photos of the massacre of innocent Palestinian children in Gaza has scarred me for life. I question why. Why innocent children? Why innocent civilians? What did they do to deserve this extreme barbaric punishment and suffering? Humanity seems absent in the face of cutting off essential supplies and hindering aid to those who need it the most. Pauses in fighting may seem like a good idea for some, but that does not solve the crisis in Gaza. Over the next few days, months, things could get much worse. The Palestinians have endured suffering long enough. For almost 80 years, they deserve their freedom and be allowed to live in peace without having to live in fear. This is why I urge this government to advocate for an immediate and permanent ceasefire and for the hostages to be released immediately from the hands of Hamas. A temporary halt is not the solution to the ongoing issues between Palestine and Israel, and diplomatic solutions between the two countries must be explored to prevent further loss of innocent lives. I urge everyone in this room today to support this motion, collectively pressuring the government to end the conflict and ensure Palestinians receive the freedom and human rights that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Councillor Lone, it's your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you to Councillor Khan and Councillor Cunliffe for bringing such an important motion before us today, which has an important impact on the residents of Burnley. I would like to go on to condemn all the innocent lives taken in this tragedy from both Palestine and Israel. Everything which is happening at the moment in Gaza is heartbreaking. Innocent children, women, elderly and men are being killed. There needs to be an end to this as soon as possible. We all have food on our table, a warm house to go to and beds to sleep in. Every individual in Gaza at the moment is fighting for the basics of life. Children are asking their parents to write the name on their legs and arms so they can be identified. I would like to ask all my colleagues here, is this what we want for our children? Would we want for them to live in fear for their life? There's no water, electricity, food, aid or basic things in Gaza at the moment. According to the World Health Organization, diseases are spreading drastically. The hospitals, shelters, schools and camps are being attacked, and this is a war crime. Why is our country allowing this massacre not only to happen, but to continue? The mothers who are here today could not imagine watching our children suffer and die because there is no electricity in the hospitals to maintain the incubators. It breaks my heart watching this. Why are voices being silenced for the Palestinians when we were there to support Ukraine? I would like to urge all my colleagues here today to support this motion and speak up for the innocent individuals being killed in Gaza. How can we watch this genocide unfold in this day and age? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kazmi.
Hello. Thank you, everyone. I just want to urge everybody here in this room today, please, let's not underestimate the power of our collective will. By advocating a ceasefire, we send a powerful message, a message that resonates across our local communities and crosses borders, and speaks to the very core of our shared humanity. It is a message of hope, compassion, and the unwavering belief that through peace and justice, we can build a better world, a better community, and a better local community for our residents. We're canvassing every day, we're speaking to our residents. They don't want to talk about their hardships. They want to talk about, what are you doing about the ceasefire? What are you doing? Support us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kazmi. Any other member, if I missed it? Councillor Lishman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree entirely with the sentiments expressed by colleagues, and particularly the element of this motion and what people have been saying about the immediate situation and what we should be advocating. And I have no doubt that a ceasefire is a crucial part of that. What I did want to comment on, which Councillor Raja also mentioned, is some of the long-term issues which arise from this conflict. Some of us, and I know I've spoken with Councillor Cunliffe about this in the past, have had experience, particularly in post-conflict situations, seeing the animosities and hatreds which continue to exist even after some temporary peace has been established. In my case, in the former Yugoslavia and in Sri Lanka. I want just to say how difficult this process is, how difficult it is to get an initial agreement, and how hard it is after that to make it work. People have talked about the Oslo Accords. I wish really we could go back to them. The fact of Israel is a fact of settlements on the ground in the West Bank. The fact is that there has been a real, if unspoken, usually, alliance between Hamas and Benjamin Netanyahu, because both of them have an interest in maintaining conflict. And the interest that both of them have in maintaining that conflict, is something which continues to fuel the crisis that we see and which has now erupted yet again. It's worth remembering that both Hamas's role in Gaza and the Israeli role is supported by democratic election, and that the evidence is on the ground that in both cases people would continue to elect those leaders. It may not, and many of us hope not, be Benjamin Netanyahu, as he currently faces corruption and other charges in a resumed hearing. But the fact is that both communities are settled into their views of each other and the conflicts that go with it. I want to add a word to the people who are here today, particularly to support the motion and to support a particular view of the conflict. In order to resolve a conflict, very, very unpleasant people have to sit down in the same room together and talk to each other. Often in these and other circumstances with a map in front of them on which they draw lines. We must do nothing which makes it more difficult to get to that stage, where, for instance, the most likely new Israeli Prime Minister and leaders from the political side of Hamas are capable of sitting down together and making a deal. That makes it possible, and this has happened in the past with other attempts, to make the investment that's needed to bring real economic, social, health life back to both the Gaza Strip and parts of the West Bank. In that case, efforts to bring people together can be undermined if people in other countries are advocating strong and simple solutions. I saw that with Tamil communities from Sri Lanka who were settled in London and Toronto, who actually made it more difficult for their representatives in Sri Lanka to talk to the other side because people had taken their simple and basic views and slogans and, as is their right, had insisted that their elected representatives follow those patterns. If we want a settlement, we have to continue to talk, as B. Foster did, about the ways in which people can come together, about what's needed to broker a difficult solution between people who are wholly at odds. Right. And that, Mr. Mayor...
Councillor Lishma, you have got half a minute to...
That, Mr. Mayor, would be my appeal to people in this room.
Thank you. Councillor Anwar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, can I thank B. Foster and the Building Bridges in Burnley colleagues and the Women for Peace for not just speaking today, but the work that they continuously do and the courage they show as well, because I know B and colleagues on the 7th of October were actually stuck in the Holy Land when all of this conflict started. But what B and the Women for Peace highlight and what Building Bridges highlight is that people will tell us that this is a Muslim issue. What they've actually highlighted, that this is not a Muslim issue, this is a humanitarian issue, and every single one of us, if we get the opportunity, we need to speak out on this. And it's really, really important, more important now than ever, that we continue the work that was started by organisations like Building Bridges in Burnley to bring our town together and carry on that fantastic work in terms of building cohesion and bringing our communities together. It's absolutely vital that we do that. But going back to what we're seeing unfold on our screens, as many of you in this chamber will know that I have a young daughter, and I'm watching what's unfolding on our screens, and sometimes my daughter sees what's happening as well. And what it really, really frightens me is that in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time, like we do with other commemorations, we're going to be standing at the Peace Gardens or somewhere else, and we're going to be saying and prayers for saying that never again. But when I saw the bombing of ambulances, refugee camps, I had my daughter sat in my lap. I thought to myself, when I'm going to be there in 5 years or 10 years commemorating the events that we're seeing unfold today, she's going to turn around to me and say, Daddy, you were in a position to do something. What did you do? What did you do? And my answer would have been, I was too scared of Keir Starmer. My answer would have been, I was only elected to sort the bins out. Is that the right answer? Is that the answer? And B touched on it. I've been to the Holy Land. I've stood there with the Imam of Al-Aqsa on the Temple Mount, outside the Dome of the Rock. And I remember speaking to him, and he said to me 3 things. I said to him, what can we do when we go from here? And he said 3 things. He said, tell people to visit Palestine. Tell them to come and visit Palestine. Second thing, if you can't visit, tell them what you see. Tell them what you see. We need people to know about what's going on in Palestine, in the West Bank, in Gaza. And if you can't do that, then pray for Palestine. Pray for the people in the Holy Land. And our position was such that we were being asked to compromise. We weren't even allowed to. We can't go there. We weren't even allowed to tell people about what's going on there. And it was such that we weren't even allowed or able to go and pray for them. And we were being asked to compromise. But what I say to you, every single person in this chamber, when it comes to the loss of human life, there is no compromise. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I will be supporting this motion, and I urge all my colleagues to do the same. The conflict in Palestine has been ongoing for over 80 years, and the genocide and displacement of Palestinians, both Christians and Muslims, has been ongoing for that period of time. The conflict is now more in our lives and affecting every corner of the earth. Due to coverage on social media, where everyone has seen footage and that can only be described as genocide and wiping out a particular race of people. The constant images and videos are affecting every one of us. It has affected me personally. My mental health has suffered. I've questioned my role within politics itself. Being a member of a particular party and its leader advocating what I would consider breaks international law and provides support for the genocide that we're now seeing that is happening. For that very reason, I had to break a 25-year relationship. But I needed to do that, first and foremost, for myself, for my mental well-being, and to be on the side of justice. Over the last 2 months, we've been hearing these words, the right to defend itself. And I question myself, what does that mean? Does that give the permission to kill innocent children indiscriminately? Some may argue that an occupier does not have the right to defend itself. And we've seen this in Ukraine. Let's be clear. Russians are occupiers. And so are the Israeli army. Over the last 80 years, there has been many opportunities to work with the people within Palestine and Israel to come to a peaceful solution. Many people have tried, but have failed. And one of the reasons I've researched, and one of the reasons I look at it, is a lot of things that are happening. And a particular article in the Times of Israel, which is a newspaper, and it came out straight after the October 7th attack. And they've highlighted, this is a summary of their article. For years, various governments led by Benjamin Netanyahu took an approach that divided power between Gaza Strip and the West Bank, bringing the Palestinian Authority under President Mahmoud Abbas to its knees, while making moves that propped up the Hamas terror group. The idea was to prevent Abbas, the President of Palestinian Authority, or anyone else within the Palestinian Authority, which is the West Bank government, from advancing towards the establishment of a Palestinian state. This is an Israeli journalist writing in an Israeli newspaper. It further says, in a bid to impair Abbas, Hamas was upgraded from a mere terror group to an organization with which Israel indirectly held negotiations through the Egyptian government, and one that has allowed to receive infusion of cash from abroad to thrive. So, when we are asked to condemn Hamas, and rightly so, we need to ask the question, who actually created Hamas and let it flourish? And this all leads, unfortunately, to the door of an actual terrorist, in my eyes, and that is Benjamin Netanyahu and his right-wing fascist government. Just before Hamas attack in October, the Israeli government ministers, and this includes senior ministers within the cabinet, in particular individuals such as the National Security Minister and the head of Israeli police force, who were speaking and using language that was inciting violence, hate and aggression towards the Palestinians. And this is before the October 7th attack. Now, this is not a modern liberal Western democracy. That was described by our MP to a constituent who wrote an email highlighting the need for ceasefire. Now, there are extremists, in my eyes, there are extremists on both sides. When we call out Hamas, and rightly so, we need to call out the Israeli terrorists who, on a daily basis, are killing Christians and Muslims in the West Bank.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, you go off a minute.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following on, as our MP, in response to an email to our constituents with regards to backing a ceasefire, and he concluded this, and I must agree with him, Israel must avoid falling into the dangerous trap of being so aggressive that in its search for Hamas, it inspires a new generation of terrorists that will only replace one problem with another, and there will be no lead to a peaceful solution. This is what the world, in my eyes, sees, that you have the most largest sophisticated military supported unconditionally.
Mr. Mayor, your time is...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to conclude, I hope we have a ceasefire now. We hope we get rid of the extremists on both sides. Peace can only come through non-violence means and an honest, fair discussion on a two-state solution.
Thank you. Councillor Barton. Carol Barton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel like I'm going to make myself rather unpopular now. I've heard so much tonight that I completely agree with wholeheartedly. The situation in Gaza is utterly abhorrent. As a mother, I cannot imagine what the people there are going through. But what I've not heard a lot about in the discussion this evening is the motion itself. The motion asks us to move that the council leader and chief executive write to our British Prime Minister and leader of the opposition 6 points. At point 3, we ask the government to guarantee the prompt opening of aid corridors into Gaza. Guarantee. Guarantee. We have, as the British government, we have no power to do that whatsoever. Words are important. There is a reason why legislation takes so long to put in place, why it gets bounced between the House of Commons and the House of Lords, because sometimes just a simple misplacement of a word can undermine the whole ambition of what you are trying to achieve. Unfortunately, as we cannot guarantee that prompt opening of aid corridors, I feel it would be embarrassing to ask our chief executive to ask that of our Prime Minister. Thank you.
Right, I'm coming back to Councillor Lubna Khan. You have a right to reply.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Wow. Well, if I could just take a minute, thank you. So I would like to thank all of my colleagues across parties tonight in this room. We have had some amazing speakers, speaking mainly from emotion, and people say that emotion and politics don't mix, right? Well, I say, and this is my opinion completely, that you can't do politics without the emotion, and if you do, this is what happens. I'm actually quite disappointed in the last remark, only because to be pedantic and pick at a word, I just feel that the little girl, baby Reem, that died recently, when her grandfather was holding her dead body and caressing her forehead with his beard, because he was her grandfather, she was his granddaughter, I don't think any of these people would ever thank us for being pedantic about a word. I think that what we should think about is that these are real people. This little girl that passed away was the same age as my daughter, and if somebody did that to my daughter, I would be really upset if somebody was caught up on a word. It's a word. You're not going to put your name to something because of one word. Maybe that is not the real reason. And maybe the real reason is everything that is being debated here tonight, actually. Maybe that it's because blood that is of a certain kind is more important. And blood that is cheap or easy or people will be quiet about is not important. I'm sorry, I don't stand by that. If that's politics, then you can keep your politics. We will keep on doing what we are doing. We're using our voice, and if that means that you don't see us having a really big political career or getting very far, that's absolutely fine. Because at least at night we can sleep, at least we can feed our children and hug them and kiss them, and at least we know we did something for that little girl, that little baby Reem, and all the thousands. This motion was written a week and a half ago. Them numbers are old. The numbers are high, a lot higher than this, probably higher than we will ever know. And we are not going to get caught up on a word. We are not going to be silenced about this. And if people agree with us or if they don't agree with us, we will keep on taking this forward. We will keep on talking about it. We will talk about it till everybody's huffing and puffing and sighing in the room as loud as they want to. Nobody will silence us on this or anything else that matters. And let me tell you what Afrasiab said, the leader of the council, is he's 100% right. Every human life matters, and we will not compromise anymore. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Thank you, members. We have got this meaningful debate, and now we will go to the votes here. All those in favor, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? Please quiet. Right. Thank you. The motion is carried. Thank you so much. Right, we are moving towards item 6A. It's Lancashire Combined Authority and Devolution Proposal. Councillor Anwar, will you move a motion, please? Yeah. Councillor Anwar, await a minute or so. Right, Councillor Anwar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. As members will have known, obviously this item with regards to the County Combined Authority is we've been discussing this for quite some time, and in my strategic updates, one of the things that I have been doing is trying my level best to keep members updated on where we're up to with this, with the little information that we were provided as district leaders. Now, obviously, the information that has come out, everybody will have seen in the media with the announcement of the proposals that have been put forward by the three upper tiers. The first thing to say is that, obviously, I think to call it underwhelming in terms of the deal itself is a bit of an understatement. But what we've also got to outline here is that districts have been excluded from the conversations in terms of pulling this deal together. And as part of that, we met with the Minister as district leaders and raised all of our concerns. We also met with the Shadow Minister as well from the Labour Party. And I think it's important to outline that this deal would not be going ahead if it didn't have the support of the two Labour leaders as part of this. And so to pin this just on the Conservative leadership of the County Council would be unfair. In terms of what actions we've taken, we've written to the Shadow Minister and we've also written to the Secretary of State. The last of those letters outlining our position actually went on the 24th of November. But in terms of what we're here to discuss today, I think in terms of what my personal opinion might be about the deal and in terms of what we might have as members in terms of what we think of the deal, that's absolutely fine. We can make our representations and we can feedback and we can take part in that consultation. But I think for us to today, so early on in the consultation period, for us to make a decision and as a council oppose the deal, I think that would be premature, and also I think it would be unfair on all of our residents and businesses, and also any other stakeholders as well. So what I would like to do, Mr. Mayor, is I would like to propose the following motion: that full council is recommended to defer submitting a consultation response supporting or opposing the proposal with or without amendments until the 24th of January 2024 full council meeting, to enable members to make an informed decision after the hearing the views of residents, businesses and stakeholders. This is still within the consultation window, and just to reiterate, our initial view is that this council acknowledges that the government's support for the application from the three upper tiers in Lancashire, those three councils being Lancashire County Council, Blackpool Council and Blackburn with Darwen, to establish a level 2 county combined authority without a directly elected mayor for Lancashire. While we affirm our support for devolution in Lancashire, we express our reservations regarding the proposed terms of the announced deal. The absence of involvement from district leaders and district councils and district leaders in the deal's development is deemed unhelpful and undemocratic. This council therefore emphasises the importance of granting voting rights to district councils in any arrangement, recognising that such a provision lies within the powers of the constituent members. Also, this council has previously advocated for exploring a mayoral combined authority, aligning with the government's stance that such an authority, which is a level 3 with a directly elected mayor, secures the most significant devolution within the limitations imposed by the current rules. Regrettably, the current proposed deal falls short of representing Burnley's ambitions and addressing our unique challenges. Furthermore, the removal of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, the absence of voting rights for districts and the transfer of other functions from districts do not align with the principles of genuine devolution. The social and economic needs of East Lancashire citizens are not the same as those facing other parts of the county. This council encourages further dialogue and negotiation to ensure that any future arrangements better reflect Burnley's aspirations and contribute to meaningful devolution. We note that the government's assertion that the current parliamentary window limits the possibility of securing a level 3 deal. We acknowledge that the proposed deal may serve as an initial step toward future future arrangements. And finally, just to note that this council does not support local government reorganisation as a precursor to any form of devolution. And so I just want to move that motion and also reiterate the point. I think it would be unfair of us to make a decision without actually going out and listening to our businesses, listening to our residents and hearing what they have to say. We can make our own representations, we can make our group representations, but it would be unfair for us to do that. I move, Mr. Mayor.
It's not been, after it's been seconded.
It's seconded. Let's wait for the second year. Councillor Lishman, will you second the motion, please?
Indeed, I will, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Yes. How long? Sorry.
Is that seconded?
For how long?
And for how long? 10 minutes. Yeah. 10 minutes. It's seconded. And okay. Hang on.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. I just need to clarify what we're actually discussing here, because it says move the following motion. Now, from what I understand, Councillor Anwar was talking to a report. So I'm assuming this is an amendment to a report, not a motion. Can we just clarify what we're actually talking about before we move on?
May I ask Chris to respond to this question?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to confirm that this is a motion. There's no requirement for a motion to be moved to be the same as the recommendation in the report. There is precedence of this in relation to Boundary Commission reports that have been before this council before. They may make this ruling to this effect under CPL 6.
Councillor Townsend.
Well, just to clarify, there was a motion earlier in the meeting that was moved, and that was constitutional. I get that. You're able to do that. This motion looks to be basically a similar type motion. I'm confused. Are we actually speaking to a report, or is this a motion without notice that's been submitted? If it's a motion without notice, it seems to break the Constitution, because it's not this type of motion isn't allowed, if I read the Constitution correctly. So it's either an amendment to a report or it's a motion without notice. If it's a motion without notice, it's unconstitutional and should just go in the bin, or come back on January the 24th when Councillor Anwar's wait and see policy kicks in.
Councillor Anwar, you want to say something?
Shall we just adjourn and discuss it?
Yeah. Can we adjourn it for, say, 10 minutes here, then we can discuss and come back with the proper, meaningful debate?
We'll go to the vote for the adjournment.
Yeah, right. We are going for the votes for the adjournment. So, Councillor Anwar, please sit down. We are going to vote for the adjournment here. All those in favour of the adjournment, please show. That's for 10 minutes. No, not yet. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Right, please, all those in favour of the adjournment for 10 minutes, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? Yes, the motion carried here.
Members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding. Thank you. That means everybody, please. Ladies and gentlemen, please. Can you stand up, please? Okay, Mr. Mayor. Members of the Council, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding to receive the Worshipful the Mayor of Burnley, Councillor Arif Khan. Thank you.
Please be seated. Right, we are going back to the motion. It's been moved and seconded. Any member? Sorry. Councillor Townsend, Councillor Conley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for hearing my concerns about the constitutional issues. The precedence that's been created is certainly interesting and may well come back to bite us in the future, but that's probably for another day. Coming back to the substantive elements of the motion itself, I think all I can say in terms of this is obviously the wait and see policy continues. It's a policy that so far has got us to where we are today in terms of this calamity of a proposal in terms of a county combined authority. The council leader again seems to be wanting to hedge his bets. I don't know why, because the November the 24th letter that he put his signature to, along with all the other Labour leaders of Lancashire, basically seems very clear in terms of its opposition. So I'm not really understanding why we should be saying that's almost like an initial view. That is the view that we've presented to government ministers. That is what government ministers are actually reading as Lancashire leaders' view, well, the 8 Lancashire leaders. Clear leadership on this is required, and I don't think the people of Burnley are going to be getting it over these next few weeks. If all we say is, these are our reservations. And I think point C, if we're being pedantic, and I'm not going to do this on the night because it seems pointless, but the word reservations on the top line of point C should really say opposition, and being clear to the people of Burnley in terms of what our reaction is to this. And it's just been weak and mealy-mouthed again, where we're like hedging our bets instead of being firm and consistent. And finally, I'd like to say, because obviously I'm really quite flattered in terms of that Councillor Anwar took the motion that I put on notice, seems to have spent a lot of time rewording it and redrafting it and putting it into something that he can put his name to. So we will be supporting this. It's not as strong as it should be in terms of giving a clear direction to the people of Burnley and the businesses of Burnley on what we need to do. And just one final point, I'm disappointed because, and we've had this in the past from other members, at Member Structures Working Group, ahead of this council, it was agreed that the 24th of January was too late for this council to be making a decision on its consultation response, because that's only 2 days before the consultation is finished. There was a consensus in the room that we should bring it to this council and set a clear direction. Again, it's disappointing that we have those meetings, and then when it comes to these forums, people seem to have changed their mind without discussing it with any other group leaders or parties. But we will be supporting, because it goes part way and it's better than nothing. Thank you.
Councillor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I just wanted to speak on this very quickly because it's not going to get spoken about until January again. Now, speaking with the Conservative group during the break we just had, we will be supporting this motion, but a little bit different to the reasons that Councillor Townsend's laid out. So, for those who don't know, basically, the county devolution deal, which is being discussed, is not about taking powers away from Burnley Borough Council. It's not, as Labour proposed a number of years ago, transferring our council responsibilities to Blackburn, which we were all opposed on this table at the time. This is about moving decision-making from Whitehall, down in London, to Lancashire at the upper level of local government, which for us is Lancashire County Council, but obviously the two unitary authorities that are in Lancashire with Blackburn and Blackpool, them also involved. Now, the districts don't have a voice in this because the districts really have been arguing about it for 7 years now and have not been able to come to any sort of consensus. So the upper tier have gone ahead and made a devolution deal without us. Now, all of our functions stay the same, but Lancashire, at the combined authority, will get more powers over economic regeneration, roads, transport, education, a lot of things they'll get more on, and they'll get more funding because of it. So it's not, as one of the guests that we had in the council earlier on this evening, about raising taxes or printing more money. It will just be a transfer from the money down in London up to Lancashire, which has got to be a good thing for us as Lancastrians. Like I say, I would prefer, and we would prefer, to be just supporting in this consultation the Lancashire devolution deal. However, if this council doesn't feel like it's at the stage where it can do that right now because it needs to see a bit more detail, then so be it. We'll wait till January. The consultation will still be running, so we can support this motion that has been put forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right, thank you. Councillor White.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I read the document, I very much felt it was written by AI. Didn't really say much. There's nothing you can get inspired about it. But the most important thing is get the public involved as best as you can. I mean, some of the things I picked out when I was reading through the whole lot, it was on page 25 of the council. It says, basically all the councils have to agree to it, which means if one council says no, then basically it falls. That's what it says. On page 69, it says the council should make the decision after consultation with the public. And then on page 111, it talked about an online survey and how the council is supposed to get involved with getting the information out to the public and getting feedback back. It's like a lot of people, I don't think anybody really knows what's going on concerning how this is going to be, when the online survey, is this going to be done by Burnley Council, through the county council, or whatever it may be. But it's like I say, it's not an inspiring document by any stretch of the imagination, but we need to get feedback from the public, see what they think, and take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, Councillor Anwar, you have the right to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to say too much on this, and I know Councillor Townsend referred to it as a wait-and-see policy. This is not what it's about. We've all got our own opinions as elected members, but we're not here to represent ourselves. We're here to represent the people of Burnley and Padiham. And it's only right that we go out and seek their views before we as a council make a decision or go to the vote on what we think will obviously impact their futures. And again, I just want to say, you know, obviously, as Lancashire Labour leaders, whilst I sat in on those meetings, Labour leaders, the two Labour leaders were adamant that this was a deal that they were going to push for, irrespective of what the district leaders from the Labour Party were going to say. We sat in a meeting with the shadow minister from the Labour Party, Paula Barker MP, and her response was that if they wanted, we all agree, or I feel that this is an underwhelming deal. But we said to them, you have the power to pull the plug on this deal. And they refused to do that. And the reason for that was because they had no policy of their own and they had no plan of their own. And that's the honest truth. And so what we've got to do is we can turn around and make a decision today, oppose it or vote in favour of it. But have we had the opportunity to go out and actually listen to our residents? And that's what this motion is doing, is actually saying, let's go and listen to our residents, let's go and listen to the public, and let's listen to our businesses and see what they feel. Because this could be the first step towards a better deal, like what Manchester and Liverpool have. Could be the first step, but let's go and listen. And I think it's really important that we do that. With regards to what was agreed at member structures, I think what was my recollection of what was agreed at member structures was that it was too late to bring a report to the 24th of January full council, which is why all members agreed that we would bring this. But the fact now that the report has arrived, officers have worked on that and it's come, everybody's had an opportunity to have a look at that. Now what I think every single member in here today has got to do is actually take the message out and seek the views of the public, because that's what that's who we're here to represent. Seek the views of our businesses, of the public, of our residents, and see what they think should happen. So, yeah, I would like to finish there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right, thank you. We will now move to the votes here. All those in favor, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? No. Right. Thank you. The motion is carried. Right. Item 6B, constitutional reporting and appointments. Members, there are recommendations for noting and items.
Sorry, we just need to, I think that, Mr. Mayor, we need to go back to 5B because the agenda has been reordered.
Oh, right, yes, sorry.
Do you want to, in view of the motion being carried, Councillor Townsend, would you like to withdraw your motion or do you want to leave it on the agenda? That's probably the question Mr. Mayor's going to ask you. So do you want to ask?
Yeah, so, Councillor Townsend, yeah, you want to withdraw your motion or you want to?
I am going to withdraw the motion, but I think I'm still allowed to speak in terms of putting a motion forward to withdraw the motion, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay. As Councillor McGowan took the opportunity to say a few words about the actual devolution deal itself, I'm going to take that opportunity. To be
sorry, Councillor Townsend, just so that the Mayor can introduce your item and then you can speak. Is that okay? Because are we just trying to clarify it?
Yeah.
So you're going back to...
Mine's mixed with beer. Okay. Right. Agenda item 5B, we are talking now here. Motion on the establishment of a county combined authority for Lancashire. Councillor Townsend has submitted an alteration to the motion originally published with the council agenda. The altered motion was circulated to all members yesterday in line with CPR 14.7 in bracket A. Can I ask the meeting to signify whether they accept the alterations? All those in favor, please show. No.
Sorry, just for clarification for members, what Mr. Mayor's just read out is in relation to the proposed alteration to the motion submitted by Councillor Townsend. So Councillor Townsend submitted a motion, but yesterday it was published with your agenda papers, an alteration to that motion. So what Mr. Mayor is asking is whether or not this meeting is prepared to accept the altered motion.
Right. So am I asking to show here? All those in favor? Yeah. All those in favor of this alteration thing, yeah. Yeah. Councillor Baker.
He hasn't withdrawn it yet because it hasn't been tabled as part of the agenda. We were just asking the question for clarification. So can we just once again, Mr. Mayor's going to ask whether or not the meeting is happy for the motion as tabled to be altered. So I'll hand back over to Mr. Mayor.
Right. So, yeah, I'm coming back to you members here. Are you happy for the alteration to be accepted here? Yeah, so...
And then all those against?
All those against? Any abstentions?
It's carried.
Yeah. So
it's carried. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the motion is carried here. Okay, thank you.
The alteration is carried.
Yeah, the alteration is carried here. So, yeah, Councillor Townsend, you want to
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I will say a few words about the altered motion when I get to the point about withdrawing it. But I want to take up on what Councillor McGowan was saying. But I want to be clear that my view has always been that Lancashire and Burnley does need a devolution deal to shape its own future and influence its own future going forward. And there are a number of deficits in the deal that is currently on the table from Lancashire County Council, Blackburn with Darwen and Blackpool. Firstly, it lacks ambition. It's a Division 3 deal. We need a Premier League deal to get the best for Burnley. 95% of the things mentioned in the proposal are a rehash of previous announcements or basically things that we are doing already. There are no tangible measures in the proposal in terms of how it will really improve the lives of the people of Burnley, whether that's individual prosperity, productivity, health inequalities, the attainment gap, housing standards. It lacks so much and we can do so much better. As for the money, we're talking about, in this report, £20 million for 3 projects. One in Blackpool, one in Blackburn with Darwen, and one in Salisbury. Not one project within 12 miles of Burnley. 20 million quid is less than the price we paid for Pioneer Place. And this is for the whole of Lancashire. What we're left with is £2 million across 14 districts on cosy homes. 150,000 quid, basically, for this borough to insulate a few homes. That's what they're calling a good deal. It's undemocratic. There are 4 unknowns who will be running this council, who've basically been elected with 6,500 votes between them out of a population of 1.53 million. None of them with any relation to Burnley. Only 2 out of the 12 district councils will even sit in the room. And even then they'll only be able to say something. They're not allowed to vote.
Councillor Townsend, at the point of order coming up.
I'm quite happy to take a point of order. Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, Chair. We voted to allow the alteration to go ahead, but we're not talking about that motion anymore. It was going to withdraw it, and either way it says, any alterations, the meeting's consent will be signified without discussion. So I can't see what this speech is all about. Is either withdrawing the motion or talking about the motion and going and proposing it. If he's withdrawing it, then we just vote to withdraw it, Mr. Mayor, under 14.8, and then that's it. We just take a vote on, yeah, we're allowing to withdraw it, and that's it. He doesn't get to speak for an hour or whatever he wants. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Clarification. Yeah.
I think I'm allowed to continue. We didn't basically have anything constitutional that was of...
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, those were constitutional points. If the legal people can give us a definition on that. Could we ask if Councillor Townsend is withdrawing... Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I apologise. Is withdrawing the motion or not? If he's not, then fair enough, we'll carry on listening to it. But if he's going to withdraw it, then he has to withdraw it. He can't just say, oh, I'll read it out, say all I was going to say, then I might withdraw it at the end. That's not constitutional. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Yeah. Councillor Townsend, yeah, you do.
I'm quite happy for any legal officer to make a ruling, but I think in moving a motion, I'm allowed as much time as anybody else. In terms of, I will get to that point.
I think we need some clarification. Councillor Townsend,
I am moving the withdrawal of the motion, but I'm putting on record my concerns around the proposal for the record.
Yeah, that's understandable. Yeah, well, I want clarification. Yeah, you are withdrawing the motion. Yeah, so yeah. So, are we going for the votes? Chris, yeah.
Councillor Townsend is withdrawing the motion, not moving the motion.
Oh, right, yeah.
Therefore, he can speak. But that's... Councillor Townsend is withdrawing the debate. He can talk to it, but there is withdrawing his amendment. He can talk to it, but there is no subsequent member discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, motion. Apologies. Yeah, motion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where's 14A?
Next page.
So just to clarify, what Chris is trying to say is that there will be no member discussion in relation to the matter, but in moving his withdrawal, Councillor Townsend can talk a little, but the Constitution isn't clear whether or not Councillor Townsend can say an introduction before he formally withdraws. So that's what Chris is clarifying. I'm just repeating what Chris is clarifying. So.
All right. Thank you. So, yeah, Councillor Townsend, you conclude whatever you want to say here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe I was talking about the undemocratic version of this proposal, and the four unknowns who will be running Lancashire, the County Combined Authority, who between them will have had 6,500 votes, which is about 1.5 Burnley wards, basically to run Lancashire out of a population of 1.53 million. None of them related to Burnley. Nearest one about 12 miles away. The only member on this CCA who has at least a cross-Lancashire mandate will be the Police and Crime Commissioner. But even he won't have a vote. He will just be able to sit in the room and utter words. The weighting of the votes are not right either in terms of this. There are 2 votes for Lancashire County Council, which at my calculation probably represents about 1.2 million. So 600,000 per vote, whereas Blackpool and Blackburn with Darwin will both have one each, where they have 150,000 people. So the whole thing is undemocratic and needs to go in the bin and back to the drawing board. This does, contrary to what Councillor McGowan said, it does, in certain respects, already centralises power in Lancashire. We've got over £3 million from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. In the future, that will be controlled by this County Combined Authority. The LEP is being totally subsumed into this authority, where districts did have some influence over the LEP. And Growth Lancashire, which is one of the bodies that this council actually set up in a before it became Growth Lancashire, was actually Elevate. And we all know where that came from in terms of the housing market renewal, and was an East Lancashire company and will disappear into this authority. And in the future, read clause 19, Councillor McGowan. The CCA will be able to take powers and functions from district councils without the consent of those district councils. That is a clear and present danger. There might not be a proposal on the table right now, but that doesn't mean to say that there won't be one in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, or 4 years' time. And this is a closed shop. The only way that a county combined authority can change in the future if it's the 4 constituent members ever vote for it to change. Is that likely to happen? Absolutely not. So, the final thing, a devolution deal is desperately needed. A deal that strengthens Lancashire and allows Burnley to influence and shape its own future. A deal where Burnley and Padiham people can hold those who make the decisions for us to account. This isn't that deal, but I'm conscious that we've just voted through a motion that defers a decision on this to January the 24th. So I will be withdrawing the motion, and thank you for your patience, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. Can someone second that?
Yeah, I'm seconding that withdrawal. Thank you.
So it's moved and seconded.
That's it. Right, that's it. The motion's been withdrawn.
Right, so the motion is being withdrawn here, so we are moving towards the next item agenda. It's 6B. There's no voting on it. So no voting on this one. Right. Item 6B, constitutional reporting and appointments. Members, there are recommendations for noting and items for decision in this report. We will firstly take those items for noting. Does any member wish to say anything regarding the items for noting at paragraph 6, 7, 8, and 9 of the report? Thank you. Those items are noted. Moving on to the items for decision, members will note that an updated Appendix 4 to the report was published yesterday, finalizing nominations to committees and outside bodies. Member will note that the nominations set out at the revised Appendix 4, if approved, means that Councillor Ishtiaq will no longer sit on licensing committee, of which he is currently chair. If any group would therefore like to nominate to the chair of licensing position, please do so alongside moving your nominations to committees and outside bodies. Councillor Anwar, will you move the amendment to section 5.7 of the Constitution, guidance to members and officers involved in outside organizations as set out in Appendix 6 to the report and the Burnley Independent Group nominations to committees and outside bodies as set out in the Appendix 4 to the report?
I move, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lubna Khan, will you second that?
I second, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Mark Townsend, will you move the Labour Group nominations to committees and outside bodies as set out in Appendix 4 to the report?
In doing so, and before I move, I just have one amendment to the outside bodies, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor. Burnley and Pendle CAB replace myself, Mark Townsend, with Councillor Margaret Brindle. Having made that change, I move the report. Thank you.
Right, okay. Is that seconded?
I'll second that. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Next one. Councillor Howard Baker, will you move the Liberal Democrat Group nominations to committees and outside bodies as set out in Appendix 4 to the report?
I so move, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Maggie Lishman, will you second that?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. Right. Councillor Scott Conliffe, will you move the Green Group nominations to committees and outside bodies as set out in Appendix 4 to the report?
I am happy to move, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Martin Hurt, will you second that?
I second those, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Alan Husker, will you move the Conservative Group nominations to committees and outside bodies as set out in Appendix 4 to the report?
I move it.
Thank you. Councillor Mike Steele, will you second that?
I second that, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, just for the interjection again. My democracy colleagues have advised me that a Liberal Democrat, we have got no chair of licensing at the moment in view of the resignation of Councillor Ishtiaq. So members within the room may want to put forward their nominations in relation to the same.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry about that. I was waiting while we sorted the committees out first. May I move? I would like to move the appointment of Councillor Jeff Sumner as Chair of Licensing.
Yeah, okay. And seconded?
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
So, I'll go for any members. Any members? Any questions? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The motion carried, the item carried in. Item 7 on the agenda, reports from committee chairs. 7A, scrutiny. Councillor Gail Barton, will you move the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move my scrutiny report.
Any member? No. Thank you. 7B, audit and standards. Councillor Margaret Brindle, will you move the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I so move my report.
Any member? Seven C, development control. Councillor Christine Solis, will you move the report?
I move my report, Mr. Mayor.
Any member? Thank you. 7D, licensing. Councillor Alan Lewis, would you move the report, please?
I move the report on behalf of the former chair of licensing.
Thank you. Any member? Thank you. Hold on. We are moving towards item 8, strategic plan progress reports. I will take each report in order. I will ask for any questions on the report, and the executive member will respond to a number of questions. The same procedure will then be followed by observations. Can I remind members with a question or observation to clearly quote the page number and reference? Also, will members please be concise with their questions and observations? Leader, Councillor Anwar, will you please move your report?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I moved my report, and in doing so, I just wanted to provide a little bit of information on the. I'm not going to say anything else on the County Combined Authority, but with regards to the government's levelling up agenda and the long-term plan for towns, I just want to let members know that I have written to the Secretary of State asking why and if. And to provide clarification on the issue around Padiham and Cliviger, Westone and the villages being excluded from the town's deal. And also that over the next few weeks and a couple of months, the priority will be to get that towns board set up. So we're working in partnership with stakeholders to ensure that gets set up. And that will be a priority for the council. And then on the levelling up 3, obviously the areas that were successful with levelling up 3, round 3, were announced, and obviously Burnley wasn't included in that. So I have written again to the Minister to, one, express my disappointment that we haven't been successful, but I have asked and welcomed a conversation, and I can say that I have had a response from the office, the Minister's office, saying that they would welcome a conversation around how we can draw down further funding that would complement our round 1 funding. So I look forward to seeing how that whether it transpires and how that conversation goes as well. Okay, I move my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any member? Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 169, PR1, and it does relate to the towns boards. I wonder if the leader could give us some guidance, or basically some information on the types of people that he's looking to select for this board. I'm sure he can't give names because that'll come later, but I think it's important that we know how this board will be constituted, because it's going to be responsible for spending a lot of cash, £20 million over 10 years, so it's important that we know who these people are. And basically, this council will remain the accountable body. So we need to understand who it is who's going to be on this board. But at this stage, if you could just give us the type of people, and will the actual names of people come back to this council to be ratified as people that we accept as a council to go on to that board? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Harbour next year, then I'll come back to Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's again the same item on page 168/169, the levelling up bid, which is and the town, the levelling up with the long-term plan for towns. I was reassured to hear the council leader said that he has written to the Secretary of State to receive clarification on Padiham, Cliviger and Westthorne. This was made apparent to us early in October that there might be a problem here. So I'm just wondering, when did the leader actually write for that clarification? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Anwar, you want to respond to these two?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In response to Councillor Townsend's question around the makeup of the board, it will have representation from businesses, from the voluntary sector, from key people, from the community as well, education. So we'll have a cross-section of key stakeholders right across the board. In terms of, and it is important that we do have that transparency, just simply because obviously we will be the accountable body in terms of the funding that is drawn down. In terms of when the letter went out, I don't have the exact date at hand, but I can get you a date and email that across to you, Councillor Harbour. Thank you.
Right, if no more questions, I'm going towards observations. Any observations? Councillor Martin Hurd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's page 169, BR5, and it's about Newtown Mill. And I just wanted to comment on how well the progress seems to be going on that mill. I certainly remember residents asking what was going to happen with it being empty and slowly crumbling and decaying. And now we're seeing it being transformed into what will be a state-of-the-art facility that will invigorate that end of town and will really complement the Heritage Action Zone on Low St James's Street. So I, for one, can't wait to see the finished product. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 169, right at the top. I don't know whether it's the school teacher in me that notices things like mistakes, but I was pleased that Burnley was selected for the allocation of the £20 million endowment announced as part of this initiative for the 55 towns across the borough. Presumably it means the 55 towns across the country, because unless I've missed something, we've only got one town. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, just the one thing that occurred to me was, how carefully do people read the reports if I'm the only person who seems to have noticed it?
Right. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Anwar, I've got two more. You want to respond to these two, and then I'll come back to you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, with regards to obviously the first observation from Councillor Hurt with Newtown Mill, I'm sure every single person in this room is excited about the developments that are taking place across the borough, but in particular about bringing that part of town back to life. And it's an iconic building, and we can't, all of us, none of us can wait to see that when it is open and being used again. With regards to the what Councillor Kelly mentioned, that I deliberately put that in there as a test for her, because she is, and she's passed. You've passed, yeah.
Right, thank you. Councillor Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Going back to page 168/169, the levelling up agenda long-term plan for towns. It's my understanding, Mr. Mayor, that when this initiative was announced, I think it was early October, at the beginning of October, and I think it was made clear to us then that there may be a problem regarding Padiham, Cliviger and Westthorne. And basically, there might be a chance that when this £20 million comes into the borough, there'll be nothing spent in Padiham, Cliviger or Westthorne. Now, I hope that's not the case. What's worrying me, and again, I'm disappointed in this, that when I asked for a date of Councillor Anwar, when he actually wrote to the Secretary of State, because this concerns thousands of people within this borough, he couldn't recollect when he actually sent the letter off. I hope I'm wrong on this, but I suspect it might have only just been recently been sent off. And if you like, 6-7 weeks when we've known about this, we're only just making inquiries about it. As I say, Councillor, I hope I am wrong about this, but my point is, for something that's so important to the people of those 3 areas where I've just mentioned, that letter should have gone off sooner. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I've been told to stand up, so I am going to do. And page 168, and it's PR1. And it's with regards to the County Combined Authority. And I wanted to appeal to my colleagues and say that if once we, when we see residents and from now till when the consultation ends, that you encourage all your residents to participate in it, so that we can get a good representation as to what happens. For me, it's clear it's taking away local decision-making process to a handful of individuals. And I must agree, both Tory and Labour are the same. They've not got any alternative ideas. And if anything, it's just, it's just more of the same, because you've got Lancashire County Council, Tory-controlled, and you've got 2 Labour-controlled councils. If they really wanted to do a difference or show something, there would be an alternative coming from them. So clearly, the residents of Burnley will understand, who is promoting this and who is supporting this. And it's clearly taking away local decision-making process from residents in Burnley, Padiham and the villages, away from that, and giving it to a handful of people. And the parties that are behind it are red and blue. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got one more, Councillor Bert Whistle, then I'll come back to Councillor Anwar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's page 170, PE1, relating to the investment by Burnley College into £1.6 million investment into a new state-of-the-art department looking at advancing technology and engineering. Mr. Mayor, many years ago, Burnley was an engineering town. We made parts for everything around the world, cars. We had Prestige that made cooking equipment. We made everything. We also made a lot of aerospace stuff. That, sadly, has declined over the years. And Keir Starmer's new hero, Mrs. Thatcher, was involved in destroying most of that. But I'm delighted to see that this is now coming back, that the investment is being made in the college. In 2000, I think it was 2008, the college, helped by this council, purchased 2 advanced Mazak CNC machines, machining centres, which brought the college, that started the Themis part of the college. And this is surely good for Burnley. We are desperately short of high-skilled engineers these days. Engineering these days is not dirty. Machines don't have handles anymore. They're all computerised. But there is a desperate shortage of highly skilled people. And if the college can bring introduce young people to high-tech engineering and bring young people on into the industry, that will be a wonderful thing for Burnley and will certainly advance the town's economy in the right way. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Anwar, you've got 3 replies, yeah. I've got 2 more coming after.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, just going back to Councillor Harbour's point, I will get the exact date on when that the letter was sent to the Secretary of State around why Padiham and other areas have not been included. But I think it's just, and that follows up on the other point I made with regards to levelling up round 3, is actually being proactive and writing to government and saying that we're disappointed in the fact that we've not been included in that, and can we have a conversation? And the conversation will be about all of the borough, Burnley, Padiham and all surrounding areas. It'll be for the whole of the borough to make sure that we can bring in as much investment as we possibly can so that none of our areas are excluded in any way. With regards to Councillor Shah Hussain, in terms of what he was saying with regards to the deal, and he said that Labour and Conservative are not the same, and then Councillor Birtwistle has made the point in terms of the new hero that Keir Starmer has in terms of Thatcher, and so I was just going to make that point. But I think the key point here that I want to make is around what Councillor Birtwistle has just said in terms of raising aspirations, education and skills. We should be really, really proud as a borough, as a town, that we've got the #1 college in the country here in Burnley, and that is what we're talking about. We talk about raising aspirations for the young people and people of this town, and it's something that every single one of us should be really proud of. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Barton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a really quick observation, just continuing on from the Pounds Fund geographic query. It comes as no surprise to me at all that these areas might have been left out, because I believe it links in with the research done by Big Local, which dates back to 2019, that talks about left behind neighbourhoods. And this isn't necessarily the places that you would assume. These are the places that, as well as having the deprivation index, they also lack the community needs index. That is the places that don't have the community facilities and the activities going on. A prime example of how this has been counteracted locally is Gano Community Centre that was revived through the Gano Big Local, that research work that came from local trust that has informed the all-party parliamentary group on left behind neighbourhoods. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. PR 1169, and just relating back to Councillor Harbour's question about the exchange of letters, I think it would be extremely useful if the leader considered actually publishing those letters to actually members, so we could see what dialogue is going on between the council and the Department for Housing and Levelling Up. And finally, page 170, PE1, just to point out that the success of the college is not down to certainly the whole of this administration that's in place at the moment. Two of the members of it were actively opposing the extensions to those college with all their might for as long as they possibly could. So there's no, the fact that the college is #1 in the country is despite some of the members of the current executive. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Anwar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, in terms of what Councillor Barton just brought up, it's important that we ask those questions with regards to how the funding is allocated, which is exactly what we're doing. But it was, with regards to Towns Fund, the funding was allocated to us, and what we're actually doing is, as I said before, being proactive and actually asking the question, why are other parts of the borough that are just as much in need and we want to develop, why are those being excluded? So it's important that we ask that question. And then the second, I'm not even going to entertain the second question that was the observation in terms of whether we. I think in terms of the way that question is being asked, or the observation, it's actually about my integrity. It's asking whether I've actually sent the letter. So I'm not going to even entertain that. We know that we've sent the letter and it has done, because I'm not going to get involved in playing those silly games. And with regards to the final point about the Burnley College being the #1 college in the country, got it right this time, Councillor Keller. It's something that we should all be proud of, and this is not about political point scoring about who voted for it, who didn't. It's something that every single one of us, at no point have I said it was done under my administration or this administration or that administration. It's an achievement for every single one of us in this chamber, but also those that came before us and those of across the borough who've played their part. And it's every single one of those students that have gone there, those teachers that teach there. It's not about scoring political points. It's about actually proud of the fact that we've got the best and #1 college in the whole country, and we should be proud of it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right. Good. Right. The next Deputy Leader and Executive Member for Resources and Performance, Councillor Lishman. Will you move your report?
Move my report, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions? Councillor Steele? Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This relates to PL6 172. I noticed in the report it comments on the work to get us back into the chamber and back into full use will be in December. Can I just check with the executive member what the year that will actually be? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right. The next one, Councillor Brindle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 171, 172, PF2. Council tax and business rate collection. I note that both council tax and NNDR collection rates are broadly in line with the target for the first half of the year. However, it has come to my notice following a recent email that some commercial landlords and businesses are taking advantage of a rate avoidance loophole, commonly known as box shifting. Box shifting involves landlords placing boxes or similar in vacant commercial properties for a 6-week period to trigger a 3 or 6 month rates-free period. Annually, this costs councils around £250 million a year, according to the LGA survey. This cycle is often repeated, resulting in local councils losing over 2/3 of their empty rates income and properties remaining empty for months on end. The Welsh and Scottish governments have already introduced legislation to tackle this issue. Would the executive member advise how many empty commercial properties in Burnley and Padiham are using this loophole to avoid paying NNDR? And this is covered by Class 8B, storage and warehousing. Secondly, what is the potential or estimated loss of revenue to the borough? And thirdly, what action this council intends to take to close this loophole by supporting a national cross-party campaign to eliminate unethical business rates avoidance? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lishman, it's 2 of them, yeah, and I've got 2 more lined up.
I'll take Councillor Steele's question first, which is, you'll notice on the exit to the back door of the council at the moment, there's lots of polythene all over the floor again. That's because they're taking everything out of the council chamber. What comes next is the work to make sure the people who are going to tender for the new audio systems are able to go in and complete that bit. And then when they've completed and we've chosen the appropriate person, then that work will commence. I have my fingers crossed, but I don't have a date. But I do tell you that the fact we've got the decking down means we're getting somewhere. Okay? I hope that answers it. I thank Councillor Brindle for her question. She'll be surprised to learn that I cannot answer it in full this evening, and I have no intention of trying. What I am going to do is assure her that we will provide a detailed response, and if members are happy, we will share that with all council members so that everybody is apprised of the position of this council in relation to that particular issue. Thank you for the question, Councillor Brindle.
All right. Councillor Townsend.
Page PF2, page 172, and it's PF2, council tax and business rate collections. Within the report, it says that we're likely to be 1.2% below the target by year end for council tax collection. Now that doesn't sound like a big number, but it can when it's multiplied up, and we're talking about big numbers, millions of pounds being collected here. But what I did notice was, should I look back to the same time last year, and it's significantly worse than last year. The simple question is, why?
Thank you. Councillor Barton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. PL6, page 172. It's interesting to note that we will invest in our heritage assets for the benefit of this and future generations. Now, I appreciate that Councillor Lishman might not be the right person to answer my question on this, but as a councillor who's never actually been in the council chamber as a councillor yet, I'm very excited to get back in there, well, to get in there. I'm also looking forward to the opportunity to invite our young people into the council chamber. Can you tell me whether there are any plans afoot to do that already, or would you welcome a conversation with me to organise with local primary and secondary schools about how we get that started?
Thank you. Councillor Lishman.
Thank you. First of all, in answer to Councillor Townsend's question, last year there was an awful lot of support for businesses, and I think we have to remember that that has tailed off. No, I'm talking about the business rates we were talking about. Council tax. Council tax, I think, again, we are looking at a period in people's lives where we are in a cost of living crisis, and I think we have to do all we can as a council to support people. A more detailed answer than that, I think I would have to offer officers to provide us with. It is low, and I appreciate what you're saying in response to the fact that percentages don't look that much, but they are often a lot more than we consider. I've taken over this portfolio, and that is an area where I intend to do some work. Thank you, Councillor. In relation to the council chamber, you'll be surprised to learn, Councillor Barton, I've already had conversations along the lines of what are we going to do to open up our town hall when it's possible, to show people what a fantastic council chamber we've got, and that is with the officers to come up with some suggestions in the near future. Any contributions any of our councillors have to make to be able to let that happen so that we can do it, and do it on a regular basis on Heritage Days as well, or Heritage Weeks. I welcome that because it is a wonderful asset, and surprisingly 2 members of the current executive have never been inside that building, whereas others like me have been going into that building for a very long time.
Right. Any observations? Councillor Hurt.
Thank you, Mayor. It is PL6, page 172, and it is on the council chamber works. And I'd just like to say that I'm looking forward to seeing the accessibility improvements within the chamber. Some of you may know that in recent months I've met with some quite inspirational sorry, I get a bit choked up when I get to this bit. Some quite inspirational people within the town who suffer, no, they don't suffer, they embrace the disabilities that they have. They take life as they find it and make the most of it. They inspire, they humble me just by talking to them. But they've not been able to get into our council chamber in the past because it is not accessible. And these works will hopefully mean that these people can come into the chamber, whether it's as elected members or as members of the public for the very first time, and take part in Burnley's democracy. Sadly, there are some people that objected to the money being spent on these upgrades. I think that any money we spent on these upgrades is well worth it. This is not for me, this is for the people of Burnley and Padiham, so that everybody in this town has an equal chance to take part in our democracy. And I want to thank everybody that's worked so hard on getting the chamber ready so that it can be made accessible to all. And I apologise for waffling because it's not, I've said nothing that I wrote down because I do get very emotional on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hurt. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's page 171, PF2, and it relates to the revenue budget. I think it's unacceptable that budget monitoring reports are not available when they should be. There's a brief commentary on there that basically says, trust us, it'll be okay. But we should be seeing the reports when they're scheduled to be put out. By the time we see the Q2 reports, we're going to be basically near the year end. We're well into Q4. So if there's any remedial action required, and especially in light of very high public concern about councils potentially going bust, I'm not saying that this council is in that position, because when we handed over the books, they were in excellent order, but I would say that we do expect to see reports when they're scheduled to be here. That's what the public expect of us. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take one more, Councillor Lishman. Councillor Barton here, then you take three of them together.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to highlight how pleased I am to see PF4, page 172, adding the neurodiversity awareness into our learning programme. Approximately 15% of the population are neurodivergent, but they are massively overrepresented in the unemployment market, and lots of other factors as well that mean that outcomes aren't as great for neurodivergent people as they are for the other 85% of the population. So I really, really welcome this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lishman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In relation to Councillor Hurt, absolutely right. It will be a joy to see access improved to that extent. It's a good thing. And thank you for your contribution in pushing us all to make those things happen. In relation to Councillor Barton, couldn't agree with you more. In relation to Councillor Townsend, I wasn't going to talk about national politics, but really, if Mr. Starmer hadn't made the observations that we had, we might not have had a change of administration. And if we hadn't had a change of administration, we'd have been running to the same timetable. My feeling was very much that if we pushed through and took those papers when we did, we'd be condemned. And if we didn't, and we waited to make sure we were clear and knew what we were doing as a new administration, we'd be condemned. Councillor Townsend has proved me right. We are in a good position, thanks to the previous administration, particularly thanks to Councillor Graham and her stewardship, and I am very grateful for that, and will continue to be so. We are in a good position. We will remain in a good position. I will endeavour to promise that the paper that we bring will have more detail than perhaps we would have seen normally in a Q2 paper when we take that in January. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. We are moving toward next item, which is Executive Member for Community and Environmental Services. Councillor Baker, will you please move your report?
I move my report, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions? Councillor McGowan, first here, and then. There are quite few of you. Let me write it down first here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is PL1, page 173, and it's regarding recycle bins. So, in a bid to increase recycling rates within the borough, Council introduced blue wheelie bins for recycling to replace the old blue boxes. However, there are some areas that are yet to receive these after being promised they would. And I'm particularly talking about around St John's Road and Coronation Avenue. I've spoken a number of times, as has Councillor Oscar and Councillor Broughton, about this. But could the exec member please let us know how much longer those who have yet to receive these blue bins are going to have to wait to get them, please? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Ingham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. PL1, page 174. I'm regularly contacted about fly tipping in the Gorthop area, and I'm constantly reporting it to Street Scene, as we should, and using the Love Clean Streets app. Can I ask, what are the numbers for the fixed penalty notice and the prosecutions in Padiham and Hapton? So I realise that you've issued some figures, and we claim that we have successfully prosecuted 12 individuals for fly tipping and other waste offences. But when you actually look at the correlation of the figures, where 76 fixed penalty notices for fly tipping and incorrect waste presentation were issued, along with 37 suspected fly tippers, 28 community protection warning letters. There just seems to be a lot of figures and no real correlation. Out of all of those that were issued, we only have 12 that were successfully prosecuted. So I'm particularly interested around the Grove Lane Woods area and the Mill Hill Lane and Hamilton Road and Fennyfold Terrace, where fly tipping is quite prevalent. How many enforcement officers do we actually have to carry out this work? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right. I'll take one more. Councillor Whittaker.
Mr. Mayor, PL1, page 174. First off, I'd just like to say it's great that we're getting this extra CCTV in the town centre. As we all know, we've often discussed antisocial behaviour and the criminality that revolves around it in our town centre. This £400,000 is going to be a great boost, but what I do need to ask about this, because it's not actually there in the figures at this moment in time, what part of the town centre is going to be upgraded? What are the upgrades? And when is the likely installation of it? If the executive member can answer that this evening, or if not, if you could report back to us at the next full council meeting, please. Thank you.
All right. Councillor Baker, you got 3 to respond here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Blue bins, no idea. I will get back to you on that one. Best I can offer you on that, I'm afraid. I've not really gone into the blue bin situation, apart from the fact I do know that we're getting rid of a lot of the bins. Sorry, getting rid of a lot of the bins in future as well, because we're cutting back on the number of bins hopefully over the next few years, as we're allowed to commingle waste. How long? I'll come back to you in the next few days on that one, Jamie. I do apologise. I don't usually need a microphone, do I? No, right. Councillor Ingham, fly tipping. I appreciate what you're saying, and again, I've no idea of the breakdown. I present a summary, because that's how it's presented to me, but if members are saying they'd like a bit of a better breakdown into ward areas, I'll see if the officers can do that. Not necessarily put it in the report, but circulate it to members before the report is issued, then at least you'll know that way. But again, at this stage, without digging into it, I honestly can't tell you, so there's no point waffling about that one. Councillor Whittaker, CCT upgrades, no idea on time to completion. I do know it's going in the night-time area again, which, you know, I'm a bit worried about. What about the rest of the areas? And we could put it down Pioneer Place or around Charter Walk or anywhere like that as well. But this, according to my report and the officers telling me, it's going to be the busy nighttime economy areas. To be honest, that's where most of the trouble occurs, if I'm honest. So you got to sort of see that's the obvious reason for it. And I just hope it does more for police to enforce it, really. If it helps them produce a case and we can move forward on that one. I think that's the 3 at the moment, unless there's some more, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, a few more, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
No?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think Councillor Baker will have the answer to this one either, but I'll say page 175, and they are all PL1. And this is in connection with the Rowley Lake. Reading from what it says here, there's going to be work carried out to the dam structure, and a flood modelling study is also to be carried out, arising from recommendations in the most recent inspection report, and in order to comply with environmental agency regulations and recent statutory changes. I'm a little bit concerned about this because some years ago, Rewley Lake was earmarked for being part of a sports, leisure, zip wire idea, which did not go through planning at Burnley. But in the course of that, I requested from the county analyst some water analysis from water taken from that lake. And although the amounts were small, they found cadmium, cesium, mercury, lead, and other nasties in the water, mainly in the sediment through the way that water flowed in and then out of the lake. Given that there appears to be another inspection based on this, and the Environment Agency is looking at the regulations and statutory changes, is it possible for all members of this council, particularly I think the Green Party will be interested in this, to know exactly what those levels of contaminants are in Rewley Lake as part of the ongoing works that are going to be done? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. PL1, page 174, following on a little bit from Councillor Ingham, on the fly tipping, I appreciate there's been numerous penalty notices and a massive 12 people prosecuted, and I appreciate you're probably not going to give me an answer tonight. However, I would like to get some indication of where the figures on fly tipping are going, how many in terms of reports of fly tipping. Is this work that's being done, is this bringing the amounts of people fly tipping down? Because I'm sure we're all aware, as councillors out in our wards, reporting fly tips, I would rather not be reporting them at all because people aren't fly tipping. That would be the ideal solution, and I'd like to know if this work is actually making a blind bit of difference. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Husker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Going back to the, it's PL1 and page 173. Going back to the blue bins, we have finally managed to get a decision on Upton. I'm disappointed, in fact, it's only took 3 years. And in that 3 years, we had to get a survey done, which it came back 2 years ago. So we sat on vans, and we said somebody else then. And that was disappointing. Only to find out, now we are getting them in on St John's Road, but only to find out Coronation Avenue haven't got them. When these blue bins originally came out, I remember being at council, and they were on a trial basis. And on the trial basis, when it came out, any other wards that wanted them, and they wanted to apply for them, they got told they could have them. And they're not getting them. Since, yeah, what's changed on that? But the main thing is, as well, Gorthorpe ward. I'm a resident in Gorthorpe. I'm not speaking as their councillor, but I do get complaints about when I've got them in Upton, how come Gorthorpe haven't got them? And these places in Gorthorpe do want them. And, if they want them, they should have them. They're paying council taxes like everybody else in Burnley. And they're entitled to them. Going back to page 174, PL1. What I want to ask the executive member, we might get something done on now there's a change of membership. But what I want to ask is the repeat offenders. What we're doing about these repeat offenders. There's some of them, they're getting fines, laughing in their faces and repeating. And I'm not going to go, we've been told about giving people's addresses out here. But in Gorthorpe, these stand out like a sore thumb. It's the same offenders all the time looking all the streets up. And it's ridiculous. And like I said, I'm speaking as I live in Gorthorpe. Let's have a bit of pride in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Baker, if you don't mind, I've got one more question, then you can... Councillor Barton, yeah, and then you can...
Mr. Mayor, point of order, just conscious of time.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I'm just taking this one, yeah, and then I'm going for the suspended.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is PL1 on page 175. We are now well into, after White Ribbon Day, we are well into the 16 days of action. I don't know about other councillors in the room, but I've noticed a decreased amount of awareness this year, and I just wonder whether Councillor Baker can give us a little bit more information about what we've actually done as a council over the past couple of weeks to promote this really important issue that affects so many women across our borough.
Okay, right. Councillor Baker?
I'll try and be quick, then we can finish for past, Mr. Mayor. I shall speak quickly. Let's see where I'm up to. Brindle, councillor, that is, I do apologise. I was pleased to hear the zip wire was cancelled, because I was doing it along with Councillor Townsend, Councillor Thatcher, I'll get his name right, yeah. So that was good. Oh, I'll ask about the report, because it's right, it should be available, even if it's not circulated. And I think you'll find with the new executive, we're a lot more open than previous executives have been. And we will circulate all this information to everybody. Figures. I'd look forward to see if you knew about it in October, why you didn't tell the rest of the council about this problem, councillor. 1-1. Right. Figures for fly tipping, again. The previous answer still stands. I will try and get a breakdown done so we each know what's happening in our ward and when are people going around inspecting. But fly tipping needs to be reported so that our inspectors can go in. I mean, I know I've done it once or twice with backyards to find out that somebody's dumping something. They go in and have a look and they try and find an address to see who's doing it, and then they can proceed on that one. You can come back with an observation if you like to tell me better. Well, it was indeed. But I'm standing with my back to him for a reason. I've forgotten it was him. Yeah, sorry about that. Councillor Lewis, I do apologise. Right. Blue bins with Alan Hosker, yeah. It's the same again, Alan. We'll come back to you and find out what's going on. Yes, I know where you are. I can recognise the snow on the roof, but there's fire burning down below. I don't know nothing about these surveys 2 years ago and 3 years ago, because I don't live in Gawthorpe, unfortunately for some, or fortunately for others. We'll sort out the blue bins. Now, repeat offenders, good grief, well, where do I start with that? I've only just got into the job 2 or 3 weeks ago. I mean, repeat offenders go on forever. By definition, they're repeat offenders. Councillor Barton, White Ribbon Day, I don't know what's happened to that, because when I was mayor, we introduced that and I had a white ribbon. I don't think there's any of the members here wearing them tonight, white ribbons. Did we? Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't seem to be as, I won't say it's as popular. Now, whether it's not as ladies and things like that, which I doubt very much, no, in which case then we will ensure we'll do better next time, if not this time, and that's probably the best I can offer you at the moment. And I'll shut up at that, Mr. Mayor, to give us a chance to carry on.
Before I go to observations, I'm going to read out something. It's under Council Procedure Rule 8.1, unless the majority of members present vote for the meeting to continue. Any meeting that has lasted for 3 hours will adjourn immediately. Remaining business will be considered at a time and date fixed by the chair. If she does not fix a date, the remaining business will be considered at the next ordinary meeting. If members wish for this meeting to continue beyond 9:30, will somebody move a motion under Council Procedure Rule 13? Motions without notice L, that the meeting continue beyond 3 hours in duration.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that. Thank you.
Right. Can someone second that motion?
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. All those in favor, please show. Yes. Is that for the continue to? Yeah. Those against? Right. Any abstentions? Right. The motion carried here. So we're going to continue the meeting. So we are going toward observations for. So any observation, Councillor Hurt? Councillor Hurt, you want to say something? You want to come back later on? Yeah, okay. Councillor Townsend?
Thank you. It's page 174, PL1. And it's the Queensgate multi-agency activity. I think we're all relieved to see that there's been a step up in activity of the council and police supporting residents in the area after obviously we've had a speaker here, I think, was it twice or else 3 times. I did take the case directly to the Chief Constable of Lancashire as well, via the Police and Crime Panel. So that last sentence where the work has been well received, I actually took to the Police and Crime Panel on and passed on our thanks to the Police and Crime Commissioner and the Chief Constable this week. But by the same token, asked them to keep it up. This can't be a one-off. They need to keep it going. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Baker, just one year, and then I'll see if I can talk to Councillor Hurt after.
So, health and safety. Councillor Townsend, then, while we wait to see if Councillor Hurt wishes to talk to me after the meeting and whether it's a bit less stressful, then I'll make myself available by all means. Councillor Townsend, yeah, Queensgate multi-agency thing, very good. Disappointed to see you weren't at the meeting, Councillors Townsend and Graham. Unfortunately couldn't make it that night, but I managed. Unfortunately, some of the local, the new independent party members were all there as well, but unfortunately nobody from Labour apart, in fact, no, I don't think there were, apart from not from the council anyway. It was good. Mrs. Braddock raised the points yet again, and we all agreed with her. I did make the unfortunate statement that I probably wouldn't be coming again because I was only coming because of the council meeting, but then unfortunately, or fortunately for me and you, I got this role, so I do get to come back again and look at it and try and get it sorted out. But she was a lot happier, if I'm honest, that somebody had listened. They might not be able to do everything she wants straight away, but at least we're listening and we're trying. And that's my observation to you, and I think that's it.
Okay. Councillor Hurt, are you okay? No, it's okay, that's it, yeah.
Talk to me after, Martin, I'm always available.
Councillor Townsend. Yeah.
I hope you're explaining something you've said under the point of personal explanation, not why you didn't turn up at the meeting.
Seeing you raised it, Councillor Baker,
no, I didn't.
What I will say is that if somebody wants to invite me or Councillor Graham to any meeting, whether it's in Queensgate or anywhere else, we'll be there. The fact that Councillor Baker didn't invite us to whenever this meeting was, we can't be there if we're not invited. So if you want to invite us, then so be it. If you don't, then please keep quiet.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Baker.
Point of personal explanation. It wasn't my
To
meeting.
yourself, yes.
I didn't invite anyone to the meeting, Council. You got as much notice as I did about it from whoever Mrs Braddock sends. Thank you.
Okay.
But a point of personal explanation for the benefit of the Council is to explain something that they've said previously and has been misinterpreted. And I don't think I misinterpreted anything you said previously. Thank you.
Councillor Graham.
Councillor Graham, I withdraw any complaint about you. I'm just observing that you weren't there. Thank you. I've finished now, Mr Mayor.
No, Councillor Graham, you come. Are you? No, she put hand open. Yeah.
Taking issue with what Councillor Baker was saying about this meeting. I don't represent Queensgate.
Page number, anything?
No, it was a point of personal...
All right, yeah.
It's not.
Underneath your mouth.
Does Councillor Baker understand that I don't represent Queensgate anymore?
All right, yeah. Okay, Councillor Hurt, yeah. Councillor Baker, just hold on, yeah. No, are you not? Yeah, okay.
I'd just like to say...
Yeah, just that, yeah. And just
I appreciate she doesn't represent Queensgate. She did represent the executive, and the executive were the ones addressed at the last council meeting. I don't represent Queensgate either. I live at the other end of town, but I was moved by Mrs Braddock's words and decided to react. Thank you.
Right, okay, so we are moving towards... no, he said no. He said no. Yeah, I asked him. He said no. Councillor Hurt, I think the Chief Executive wants to say.
Would you like Councillor White to read out your observation? Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, yeah. Thank you so much, yeah. Right, Executive Member for Housing and Development Control. Lubna Khan, will you please move your report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move my report and just mention a few brief words. As many will be aware, the portfolio that I'm now representing, Housing and Development Control, although it sounds very glamorous, in this portfolio things are not as fast-paced as people would expect. Bricks and mortar and planning takes time. So I'm really interested to know about the questions that are going to be raised tonight, given that I have been handed this portfolio over recently. I would like to just mention, and it is a gentle nod, and more so gentle than very openly say, that my predecessor has done a lot of work on this portfolio, and most of the information contained within it is basically their hard work. I welcome any questions and any comments, and look forward to people have to say. Thank you.
Any question? Okay. No. Any observations? Well, thank you. Executive Member for Sustainable Development and Growth, Councillor Cunliffe, will you please move your report?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And like Councillor Khan, obviously I've just come into this position. I have really enjoyed looking through the portfolio, meeting with all the staff who have obviously been doing a great job under some good stewardship. I must admit it looks good. Obviously, we want to put our flavour into it, and it's good to get that chance to meet officers and discuss broader and wider issues and look at the possibilities. I'm sure by the next full council, we'll put our little spin on it. And I look forward to you talking to you then. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Any question? Councillor McGovern and Councillor Whittaker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is PR4, page 183. It's regarding the local plan. Once again, there's an application to build houses behind Westview Terrace in Padiham, where there's already traffic and parking issues. Residents are now clear it will only be made worse if the development has one entry and exit through Coronation Avenue. But given this site is in the Labour's local plan, our hands are significantly bound on it, which is really frustrating. However, as the new exec member has said multiple times before, even in this council chamber, that this plan isn't fit for purpose and needs looking at, will he be putting his money where his mouth is and moving to address some of the clear issues we can all see with it? Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Whittaker.
Mr Mayor, looking at the Brandling figures, PR2, page 180, looking at the branding figures for this, what we're looking at here with the ARV, could the executive, AVE rather, could the executive just confirm exactly what that is? And I've got to say, for 365 million people reach, we're doing quite well, aren't we? All of the UK, half of Europe, or is that just Green Party leaflets that will be delivered? Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Councillor Connolly, respond to these two, and I've got two more lined up.
I'll definitely get back to you on the local plan. Obviously, we haven't looked at it in any big detail yet. I think it is up for the annual review report will be coming soon. We'll take a look at it then. Yeah. And I'm not quite sure what you're actually referring to, Councillor Whittaker. If you can just give me the page number again, please. Yeah, I mean, I had a really good time at the bondholders and got to meet them. We've also been talking to lots of other businesses around Burnley over the last 2 weeks. It's been good getting out and meeting them, looking at the prospects and looking at the challenge that they have in building their businesses in Burnley. And we look forward to working with them as we go forward. Obviously, business and growth is massive for Burnley. It's really important. We'll do what we can to encourage them to flare and really grow in this town. Thank you. I'm sure I can get back to you in a few days for that, Councillor Whittaker. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's page 183. I apologise, Mr. Mayor, because my question is something similar to Councillor McGovern's. But what I'm asking is that PR4 states that we will implement the local plan delivering new housing, employment and infrastructure. How will you do that when you have made it known in the past that you have no real faith in the current local plan?
Thank you. Next one, Councillor Broughton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. PL5, page 185. I can see from the exec's report that the roadmap to net zero is now published. Can he confirm when we are going to see it, please? Thank you.
Right. I'll take one more and I'll come back to Councillor. Right, Councillor Birtwistle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a simple question. I've already given prior notice to the executive members so we can get an answer from him. I am being questioned by hundreds and hundreds of people in town. When will the traffic nightmare at the Kirby roundabout be concluded? Will it be concluded? And will we have a solution to what is becoming a point of Burnley that everybody hates to even think about going to, never mind going to?
All right, Councillor Connolly, then three of them for you. Some more coming up.
Thank you. With regards to the local plan, obviously, I have stated my objection to quite a few housing developments that have come forward in my ward, in other wards, and I think we really do need to state that we're looking at the right place, the right time. With the local plan, I know that there are different formats of the local plan that are being brought forward by central government to be reviewed. So we might even be looking at a new format or a new style of local plan going forward. Until we've got more information on that, I did have a sit down with the officer yesterday about that and looking at what that format's coming through. Those discussions will probably come through for the next full council. Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Birtwistle, thank you for raising that. Town to turf is massive at the moment. It's causing much disruption throughout town. It's about 7 weeks behind schedule. It's due to be finished around summer at the moment. My concern at the moment, which I put to officers yesterday in the LCC meeting with the implementers and the project holders, is public safety. When I came off turf mode every day, I had to lift an old gentleman up because he fell over some of the concrete on the side. Part of that is to do with poor lighting on the pavement around the outside. unfortunately, you don't get to go on the turf moor and come off turf on that day. So that's a major concern for the pedestrians, especially around the retail park coming around the outside, and the lighting needs to be improved on there. I've asked officers to look at that and make sure that that's made as safe as possible in the interim period. I do believe that they're looking completion by 2024 around July. So that's about 6-7 weeks behind. Once the winter's passed, they might be in a position to even bring that time a bit forward. But until we got through the winter with the ice and the obviously the obstructions that brings, we might get through to seeing if we can bring that any forward. I understand in the meantime there's going to be lots of disruption.
All right. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to go back to PR4 on page 183, and again, it relates to the local plan, and this perhaps is a bit easier for Councillor Cunliffe. There's an outline planning application just been put out in Bruncher for 45 houses on Ridge Avenue. It's not an allocated site in the local plan, so I'm hoping he will use the local plan to defend this site, along with the other 80% of the borough that is greenfield. You can use the local plan to ensure that our borough remains green, and that site can be kicked out very quickly if Councillor Cunliffe uses the local plan's policies and backs them. Thank you.
Councillor Brindle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is page 184, PR6, not about the local plan. I note that this group, the Burnley Employment and Skills Group, BSEG, or should that be BESG, whichever, on PR6, I note that this group is working with LCC, focusing on young people aged 16 to 24 who are NEET, not in employment, education or training. Whilst I support the work of this group, I would like to point out that when I was a county councillor, I was a member of a cross-party task group which looked in depth at young people aged 16 to 24 who were NEET. Deja vu, I think, there. The resulting report was entitled Young People, Employment and Employability Against the Backdrop of Economic Recession and Recovery. The report was published in 2010 and met with acclaim. I have a copy of that report here, which I've kept. Very informative, very well met with acclaim. And I'll read an email that was sent to me by the Principal Officer of Overview and Scrutiny at the County Secretary and Solicitors Group of the Office of the Chief Executive at County Hall. Councillor Brindle, the Scrutiny Committee approved, indeed applauded, the task group report as an excellent piece of work and essential that it results in actions. Furthermore, it decided to submit the report to Cabinet for their discussion and to make sure that it went to as many addressees as possible, including the Lancashire Partnership and the appropriate select committee. In addition, Councillor Steen, he was a Conservative councillor, has handed a copy over to his local MP, Jake Berry, who is a working new Minister for Youth Employment and the Department of Business and Innovation.
Councillor Brindle, we are on questions. Yeah,
I'm getting to that. I'm getting to that.
Yeah.
Although the use of wording may have changed over the last 13 years, the outcomes for those who were termed as NEET 13 years ago will have as many similarities to those experienced by NEETs today. May I be assured that the current BSEG is not reinventing the wheel, and will steps be taken to follow up this previous report to ascertain if its recommendations were followed up and acted upon? And can this report be included for reference as part of the present BSEG so that progress can be assessed and duplication avoided? In conclusion, I would not like to think that this report was yet another report that sits on the shelf gathering dust.
Councillor
Thank
Connolly,
you.
if I've got one more, if you are happy to take. Councillor Barton, yeah, then.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to be really cheeky and squeeze 2 questions into this. First of all, in PR6, page 185, looking at the Thrive Youth Hub, I'm assuming Councillor Kelly has picked up the spelling mistake in this paragraph as well. It talks about positive action in the community, supporting homelessness in young people, I presume that's meant to say, not your people, at the Thrive Hub. Now, I am aware of PAC from my previous employment role. They do some amazing work supporting people, but they didn't operate in Burnley because I understood that they didn't have that geographic contract. What has changed that they are now operating within Burnley Borough? Is it that our current contract holder can't cope with the demand of homelessness in young people currently? And my second question is on the Charter Walk. I am very, very pleased to see that we have won an award for the sensory garden, another addition to making our town more autism and neurodivergent friendly. But what I'm intrigued by is how do we actually measure 62% more footfall? How is that calculated? Thank you.
Councillor Connolly.
Councillor Townsend, I'm happy to get back to you on the local plan. Obviously, as a committee member looking at development control, I'll address that when it comes to committee. I'm also quite happy to talk to you, Councillor Vindel. I'm glad you raised that report, and I can contact you anytime to have a discussion about it. It seems like it's an interesting report. And the same with these, you know, I'm welcome to talk to you about how we improve the sensory garden, the footfall around that, and how we measure all that, because monitoring evaluation is important, so we know that is that real impact going through that monitoring evaluation. And the same with Thrive and looking into that. I haven't looked into that yet, so I'm happy to get back to you on that. Thank you.
Right, so, yeah, now we are moving toward observations, yeah. Anyone? Councillor Broughton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just an observation, really, that you've failed to reply to one question. That was my question about the roadmap to net zero. I just wondered if you could respond to it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McGovern, next to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, what is it? It's the same one. PR4, page 183. I just wanted to. I'm sure Councillor Cunliffe has looked quite in depth at the local plan and what he wants to do with it. I just wanted to put on record the frustration that it has when it means that developments that are going to cause problems for people are going ahead. So I do look forward to him bringing forward something to change that on behalf of the council. Thank you.
Right, okay. I've got Deputy Mayor. I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And page do apologise. 184, and it's with the local plan, and so it's PR4, page 183. And it's interesting to listen to two parties talking about the local plan. One party, which makes laws that governs local plans, i.e. central government, and another party which actually set the local plan 5 years ago. Yet they're so keen now for this to be discussed. I find that completely puzzling. And I hope, Councillor Cunliffe, that you take this opportunity to look through it thoroughly and come with good suggestion if there's any suggestions that need to be made. If not, brilliant, leave it alone. But I find it ironic that we've got two parties just fighting over something that they had influence over, and we're waiting to go home. Thank you.
Councillor Whittaker.
Mr Mayor, just very, very brief observation on what the Deputy Mayor has just been mentioning there. The local plan, I think we all accept that it doesn't work properly, but the Deputy Mayor is incorrect in that we've not actually tried to change it. I myself tried to raise a motion some time ago to have the local plan reviewed. The executive at the time declined to do that. I just wanted to point that out. It's not two parties fighting against one another. I've tried, and the Conservative team have tried to get this local plan reviewed. Thank you very much. And the Lib Dems, by the way. Thank you.
Councillor Cunliffe, yeah, and then I'll come back for some more.
Councillor Broughton, sorry for keeping you waiting on the net zero. I have received the report, which is still in its draft version, for looking at the roadmap to net zero. There's some interesting things that I'm happy to share with you once it's been finalised by the officer. We are looking at a carbon footprint of about 2,700 tonnes for the council at the moment. It's not quite a figure in all Scope 3 emissions, which are a bit more difficult to measure, but they have made some leaps and bounds on. Obviously, with net zero, I've been charged with looking after that and moving it forward. I don't think the pace and the sequence of looking at it has been right or fast enough in the past, so hopefully we'll be able to move that, speed it up a little bit from where it's been in the past. I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Again, local planning, I agree, it needs looking at. It definitely needs looking at. I think we all need to look at it together. There's an awful lot of questions and there's an awful lot of frustration and anxiety that it causes for residents moving forward. So I think we all need to look at that together, and I welcome that.
Right. Councillor Ingham, you want to say something? No, are you all right? Okay. Right, so that's it for... oh, Councillor Husker, yeah. Well, sorry I missed you.
Just going back to what Shane Hussain said. Oh, sorry, Shah Hussain. We can't get his names right tonight, can we, Mayor, Mr Mayor? Well, I'd just like to say regarding your comments about your two parties. I've worked with Scott, right, and I talk to Scott a lot, and I like him being in the position he's in. I do admire him for taking that post. We have very similar interests on green belt land and green land on the building issues. I'm not sure what your interests are, but that's my interest. It always has been from when I came a member in 2015, and I'll continue to fight for the people I represent. And I hope that in your position, Scott, you make use of it. I know some of your views, you know my views, and I just welcome the fact that the administration changed. I hope it's for better.
Councillor Husker, which page number you are talking about?
Well, give me that now, that. Yeah. It's PR4 183, Mr Mayor.
Okay, yeah. I think we got your point here, so because it's getting late here.
Mr Mayor, can I just say as well?
Yeah.
Mr McGowan.
Yeah.
McGowan.
McGowan. Yeah. Got it. Yeah.
I mean, John Albert's an excuse an old man, but when I talk to you, you
right,
expect
so
things
yeah,
different.
thank you so much for your contribution. Yeah, we are moving toward the next executive member for health, culture and well-being. Councillor Lorner, will you please move your report?
I will move my report for all of your well-being.
Any questions? Councillor McGowan. And
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is PL4, page 187. I'll make this quick because it's getting quite late. It's about the sports strategy. There's a lot of youth football teams, adult football teams that play across Padiham. Quite a number, actually. I've been speaking with the Padiham Football Club, with Sean, and a number of others, and talking about getting 3G pitches, because at the moment there is not really, there's nothing for football players. In your new position, I just wanted to try and pick up with you where the discussions have got to since the scrutiny meeting where this was brought up. And I know the executive were talking about it previously. There's a new executive now, but I don't want to let this lie. I think that getting football training pitches for all across Padiham and even Burnley, it would be a great thing, and I'd look forward to a conversation with you about that. Just get an update, please. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor McGowan, I love football. I'll speak to you as soon as possible. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Whittaker.
Mr. Mayor, PL4 188, off-road motorcycle nuisance. I know a lot of residents, along with my fellow councillors for Whitfield and Artindale, are actually plagued by these things. It's good to see that we're putting a plan in place for it. I also want to ask the new executive member, how has this been looked into by the council? It says the council, the police and Calico. It doesn't actually give me any idea of how you're actually doing it. I'd like to know what areas are going to be included in it and what rationale you're using for those, basically. And I'd like specifically to ask if Whitfield and Artindale is actually being looked into for this as well. As I say, it doesn't actually explain anything on it to me whatsoever about it. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Whittaker, it's going to scrutiny, I believe. There's been a lot of problems in my ward also in Townley Park where we don't have an actual local police person, so we've got the same kind of problems in my ward and I take it really seriously, so I'll get in touch with you after the meeting.
Right, Councillor Barton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is PL4 on page 187. Most councillors will be aware I'm a huge advocate of the Make Space for Girls campaign. So I would like to ask, have the designs for play areas already taken gender best practice into account? And with the Mugger survey, will that reveal the percentage of boys versus girls who are actually using these facilities across town?
Right. Mr. Lorner.
Thank you, Councillor Barton. New to the position, I will look into that for you. What I can say is there's more interest in especially women's football these days, and we want to inspire the town to do that.
Mr. Lorner, stand up, please.
And we want to inspire the town to have more sport for women. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ingham.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. PL4, page 188. Going back to the off-road motorcycle nuisance, I would just like to ask the executive member, I know that it's linked to the Operation Centurion, which does operate within the Gorthop Board. I want to ask, what plans have they actually got to superimpose the Greenway and the problems that they're having with the motorcycles, and as well as the playing fields around Lancaster Drive area, where they regularly use and scramble and mess up the fields. I know in the past I've had conversations with the police and brought in the mounted officers, which do seem to reduce it for a while, but obviously we can't continually have them. So I'm just wondering if we could have a conversation, or even have a conversation with the police officers linked to Operation Centurion within Gorthop Ward, and see if there's any plans to move that forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, and yes, I'd love to visit. And I actually, Simon Goff did mention this to me, and I am aware of it. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Okay. Any observations? No. Yeah. Item number 9, questions. None have been received. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you, everyone. That concludes the business for tonight's meeting. May I take this opportunity to wish you all the very best for the festive season. Have a safe journey home. Thank you.
Members of the Council, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding. Thank you.